Welcome to another Forensic Happy Hour. Kind of the setup. Hopefully, all is well. If it isn't, someone chat in there. If it's not, but had to kind of make some things up. But hey, that's okay. It's all good. Kevin's again back. It's been a year, so I think we'll have a good chat. And just as always is, just kind of making things up as I go. And you never know if we will talk about any type of forensic stuff, or it just might get talk about beer. So okay, so here you go. Cheers to you. Very nice. Yes, exactly. Remember if that's a cue. Yeah. Oh, nice. Very good. What are you drinking there?
So it's called Troeg's Double Nugget Nectar. It's a double imperial amber
Oh,
ale
starting it
from
out
one of
right.
from one of my favorite breweries, one of my local places too. So if you ever get a chance to go to Hershey, Pennsylvania,
Yes, yes. Oh,
check that brewery out for
fantastic,
sure.
fantastic. Myself, I have a little local. No, I have a little Mother Earth, little forgotten trail ale. Going with the ale, just I'm typically an IPA. Are you like an IPA guy?
Yeah, I like most things. I think
Most
the
things with
the
hops
only
and
thing that
barley.
I think probably the only beer I really don't like is like farmhouse style
Yeah.
stuff. Um, that's where I draw the
Yeah, I'm
line.
not a
But
big
most
stout guy.
everything I'm good
Not a
with.
big stout guy. Don't like a whole bunch of the cider type of stuff. But I guess that wouldn't be classified as drinking beer, right? So hey, it's been a year, right? And so give people a little bit been going on this past year, right?
Yeah, I mean, things have been busy. Um, work's still going pretty crazy steady. Um, the world is finally opening up again, which is kind of cool to see. Travel is starting to happen again. Um, Trying to think what else has happened in the past year for me. I finished a grad certificate program at Champlain, so I finally completed 4 courses for that, which was kind of cool. Finished that. I guess it's been a year now, almost last spring, so that was really cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Right.
So I'm still contemplating if I want to go back for a full master's program at this point, but I'm almost halfway there, so
Yeah, why not?
it might be in the
Yeah,
cards in the next
yeah,
few
why
years.
not?
So we'll
Why
see.
not? That's you might as well. It's there, right? So interesting. So as part of that, with yeah, as you said, kind of opening up, it's been interesting, right? Now it's just kind of a freak show of shows, going to conferences, or things have shifted. And quite honestly, it's almost like people's heads have just come off because they're just like, oh my gosh, I get to go and see people. It's just crazy,
Yeah.
and then the crazy part is then trying to go and get lodging somewhere, right? Because it's like everyone has just decided that we are going and we're just going to make this happen and forget about everything else. It's been good. It's been good, but honestly, it's been difficult to try to stay stay somewhere close to an event, right? But other than that, I know that you've been to. I know you went to Magnets. I know you've been to a couple of things. Obviously, you're following on there. So that's cool. I mean, how nice is it to see people?
It's amazing. I mean, so I was at the conference last week, and that's the first time I think I've traveled since the fall of 2019.
Yeah.
So that was the first flight I've taken in a while. Um, so it was really nice to see friends in person, as well as meet new people that I've met through Twitter or LinkedIn in the past like 2 years, and actually get to interact with them face to face, which is
Yeah.
huge. I've missed that interaction for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I think a lot of is lost, in conversation sometimes, right? I mean, we do a lot of conversing via, might see them on video, or you might be through Twitter or any type of forums that you're having conversations, but there's really nothing, nothing better than just kind of hanging out, right? Just kind of hanging out, having a chat, being able to talk to people face to face. I think that's pretty important. I guess that's what human beings do, right? Need to interact with actual other human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned over the past few years is just, networking is so crucial in so many factors, whether it's, work or just in general life, meeting new people and getting to see where they come from and what their story is really cool to
Yeah,
see.
yeah, and and now you've gone into the fashion line, right? So, I mean, you you have the fashion line, being able to go and sell that, which I didn't want to wear my shirt on this show because I'm wearing it next week, because I bought I have your apparel as well. You're gonna have to get maybe branded, maybe on the back of it, Stark Industries or something, maybe whatever you want to put onto that, but
So,
you know. Yeah,
yeah, there is options on my site
cool.
to put logos on the back, but I think it's like an extra few dollars. So I was trying to
Right.
keep the cost down for people that wanted to buy them and just support whatever stupid, silly designs I like to make.
No, it's
So,
fantastic. I know
um,
people love it, honestly. And if you haven't, make sure that yeah, during the show sometime, make sure that you give out how people can kind of go to it. Obviously, go to your site and get some of those things as well, right? Because they're cool. They actually they are. And well, they kind of date some of us. I mean, that we look at some of those things and I'm like, oh, shit, yeah, I know exactly what I'm talking about.
it, it's actually kind of funny because it's like, I mean, I'm a 90s baby, so I'm, I grew up on cartoons and things, and I was just thinking of ideas last night, and something hit me. I was like, oh, I have a great idea for a new shirt. And so I made the design in like 15 minutes last night, and it's a Red Team Hackers shirt, but it's based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
Yeah,
logo.
I think I saw that. I think I saw
So
that on Twitter.
yeah, so that's the newest release as of last night.
Love it. That is fantastic. No, it's good. Yeah, it's great. You know what? You're gonna wind up going to shows. Everybody's gonna be wearing your stuff, and you're gonna say, "Dude, I'm gonna have to quit doing this stuff." Forensic stuff.
It's actually really funny because when I was in Nashville last week, there was a bunch of people that actually had the shirts on and were wearing them, and I would like run into them like, "Oh, hey, you're wearing my shirt,"
Hey, yeah,
or like people were like, "Where can I get them?" So
yeah,
I've been sending them links, and people have been snatching them up
yeah.
in
That's great.
here and there.
That's great. Yeah, no, no, I love it. No, they're fantastic. It's funny because all the feeds, if you go through Facebook or anything else, it's crazy because once you buy one shirt, and it might not necessarily be say your shirts, but you go buy some other shirts, and the next thing you know, you're just getting barraged. So which I always think about that at a kind of a um, invasion of privacy type of thing, right? Because of now with all of the tracking and how people are actually utilized. They are really a commercial product that
Mhm.
are being sold just simply because of the advertising. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pros and cons to it. I mean, for me, making kind of a brand is kind of cool because I like just making little designs and things and just sort of getting my name out there and my logo out there. I think that's kind of cool. Um, I guess it all depends on what people are getting out of it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that it is kind of a philosophical question, right? But we kind of work on the side of we like that, right? We love when
Hmm.
people leave things on computers, or we love when people leave things on the network, right? Because those are just artifacts that we can wind up kind of diving into those, right? So so getting on to some of those, what are some of the things I guess that you've been doing to stay up with some of the changes, that you might encounter, say, in your real job?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always had a really fond, you know, niche to kind of go towards the mobile side of things. I've always loved diving into new mobile artifacts. So I've been working on some new parsers for Alexis Brignoni's projects, the iLeaps and A-Leaps. We've had a few different new releases of file system CTF images. So I've been playing with an iOS 15 image full file system. So I'm looking forward to diving into that more to see what has changed from 14 to 15, as well as working through some of Josh Hickman's Android 12 image just to see what has changed from an Android perspective as well. There's things that are small changes that may affect a lot of tools, and so trying to at least get new parsers out there that can support some newer artifacts is great to see, especially with commercial tools having sort of development time and not getting stuff right away.
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest thing that I enjoy doing now is working on Python scripts and trying to get some of those newer artifacts
Yeah,
done.
yeah. So that that brings up a point. Obviously, and I mean, you actually alluded to it. Is do you think a lot of the tools have been, especially with with his stuff, which is fantastic because obviously it's community really supported. You're able to go in and look at it and share scripts, be able to go through all the information. Especially with Python, which I love. I mean, which people can dive into relatively quickly. But do you think that that really has simply because of the dev cycles that you might have onto a tool? Would you say it's that kind of brought this to life, or would you say it's just simply because obviously a commercial tool is never going to be able to keep up with, say, the
Hmm.
changes that you might have that happen so quickly, right?
Yeah,
On the different iterations that you might have, even dot releases that you would have with an operating system.
yeah. I mean, applications get updated all the time, and we've seen instances where one release to the next, something changes in the database and completely breaks a parser. One of the more recent ones we saw, I think it was WhatsApp. They completely changed some of the columns and things that you can pull out of the SQLite database. And so some of the tools that we were seeing, weren't actually pulling out chat messages
Yeah,
anymore. I don't remember what version of WhatsApp it was, but something to think about is, it it's easier, I think, for us from a community project where if we can see something, say on the Discord channels or on Twitter and say, oh, we can try to look at this fairly quick because we have test devices, we can try to generate some test accounts really quick to see what has changed,
yeah.
and we don't have to go through a lot of the development sort of cycles and things that I'm sure you see
Yeah, yeah.
a lot in the
Yeah,
commercial
I think
side.
that's really important, right? That's extremely important because again, with the applications, and there's really two. If you look at applications that are out there, say, the monster applications that you might have with the Telegrams, the WhatsApps, those kind of messaging applications that are out there, is it's always you're just like, Are you kidding me, man? Change the schema, all the things just get changed, and or the algorithms and I'm like, man, they're doing this on purpose. But quite honestly, with the updates, with the different type of data that they're going to use to be able to go in and say hold that type of block, or the information that they might put within that, is they're trying to streamline a lot of because they don't want to have bloat and they don't want to
Hmm.
do that. So,
Yep.
I give them obviously a little bit of leeway, but yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, you might have because WhatsApp pushed out a release just for iOS that even broke a lot of the applications. And we're
Yeah.
seeing some of the applications and some of the methods that even the downgrading on some of these just makes WhatsApp inoperable and blows out the databases. So
Yeah.
so being able or being agile, I think is crazily important, especially on the mobile side. And having that and having the availability of that. So let me just add on to that. So how important is it for people that are getting into this to kind of look at a language like Python?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important. I mean, I'm still learning how to code in Python. I don't have a background in coding at all, but I think as far as coding languages go, Python is fairly easy, and we have a lot of examples out there in any of the open source projects we already work on too. So a lot of the times I'm just going and looking at what other people have coded and just manipulating it to what I
Exactly.
need to pull out the information.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think I wrote one. I called it Cookie Monster or something like that. A long time ago. That was yeah. It had to do with the cookies that were left behind. Now cookies, now that people have to actually tell you, yeah, I'm gonna for every website you go to now. That's kind of annoying. Every website you go to, you have to one because you have to make sure that everything isn't selected. So you have to go in there to customize it and make sure it's only the ones that are mandatory to operate it. That's just kills me, right?
I usually just close them out
Exactly.
if I can.
Exactly. I'm just like, are
I,
you?
I don't check any of those
I'm like, are you
boxes.
kidding me, man? I mean, you seriously don't need any of this to operate on the website and the side of it. So
At the end of the day, it's like all just like tracking cookies and ads
that's
and,
all it is.
Google and whoever else, wanting to push you
Yeah.
products that you may or may not
Yeah.
need.
What browser are you using?
I use
Use
Chrome.
oh, seriously? Okay. All right.
um,
All right.
just from an ease of
Just
standpoint, I
okay.
guess.
Just so they can collect artifacts, right? So that you can actually have
Yeah, I
something to
mean,
go to.
I've been using it for years, so at this point, I think they know everything about me.
True.
So,
True.
I have a Google Pixel
Oh,
phone. I
might as
have,
well.
all sorts of Google products,
Exactly.
um, as well as Apple products
Right.
too. So it's, at this point, I think all of them
Exactly.
have all the dirt on me
Yeah,
as
you're
they
pretty
need,
much just walking
anyways.
down the street naked, man. They just know exactly what's going on, right? So, so with that, the interesting thing, you saw, DuckDuckGo, right? They kind of sold out as well on some of those, and it comes down to obviously, I don't know if it comes down to revenue stream for them or trying to be able to sell that stuff. Um, so so on that, I use Brave if you've ever used that,
Hmm.
and they used to piggyback on DuckDuckGo, but they've changed it and they have their own. But to be honest with you, man, it's hard to use it sometimes, right? You try to search for something and you're like, what? I only have like 5 results. And you're like, seriously? Because they don't go and crawl or they don't utilize any other servers.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's kind of a pain. But anyway,
It's always kind of funny though, because they're all kind of built on Chromium at this point. So
exactly.
all the backends are look, similar, at least from a parsing perspective,
Yeah,
which is nice.
yeah, exactly. Hey, so to go back into kind of the work stuff, so obviously people are, I mean, things are starting to progress, obviously, and getting out of the, either the work from home or the hybrid work, or people are actually going out doing some of those things. Do you see more or less of an impact on your job, as in, any type of analysis or anything that you're doing with people that are now coming back, or is it people have become extremely well, use a lot of their electronics more?
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting mix. At least for my company, we over the last 2 years, they've done a lot of closure of offices. So a lot of combining of offices, making, allowing people to work from home more often. So they've kind of implemented sort of a hybrid way of working where you can kind of pick and choose what your schedule is like and where you want to work. So I think we're going to continue to see sort of a mix of that in office, and also from home sort of environment. And I don't think it's going to change much of how we work per se, because we've kind of already gotten used to people working from home the past 2-3 years. Um, I think the hardest part still so far is doing mobile phones, remotely.
Right.
That's something we haven't really pinned down on how we can really accomplish that.
Yeah, yeah, that is, yeah, and that is something. It's quite interesting, right? Because there's so many variables. The variables that you might know are either, okay, drivers, how do I communicate? How do I go in? How do I deliver that? How am I going to go and push, across, several hundred gigabytes that I might have? Trying to think about, hey, triage a device. Obviously, there are some, there's devices that you might have on the side of an iOS device that's jailed, and there's no way to actually do that. So there's a lot of crazy variables with the mobile device and how to do that, right? So
Yeah.
it's come down to some serious issues, right?
And the one thing that we see often that we try to push, if the users are willing to try to get them to do like an encrypted iTunes backup, because that's, kind of the
Right.
best we can do remotely. but our internal networks sometimes block iTunes, so uh, that makes it basically impossible to get iTunes backups. So that's always, the kind of cat and mouse game that we always
Yeah,
play
yeah,
as well.
yeah, exactly.
Makes
Yeah,
things
exactly.
difficult.
That they'll go in. Yeah, we don't want anybody plugging their devices in. Like anybody plugs them in anymore, man. You got iCloud. So a lot of people aren't even utilizing that. But yeah, I get that. And it's always kind of a war, especially installing software or being able to go and operate within a network. People have tied it down and locked it down so much
Hmm.
that it does make it difficult, right?
Yeah. Sometimes we get lucky and, we'll be able to see like a local iTunes backup on a machine. And, if they're not willing to hand in their phone for analysis, we can sometimes remote over the wire and grab a backup from their laptop, which is
Right, right,
has been helpful sometimes in
right,
some investigations, which is
right.
kind of funny.
Yeah, and so as part of the investigations, generically, what type of investigations are you dealing with? I guess the majority of the time.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the times we see, you know, someone HR comes to us and says, we think, someone's going to a competitor. We want to know if they, took documents. That's pretty common, I would say. We see a lot of those. Um, Sometimes I work with our incident response team on more of the malware side of things. So someone says, my laptop got infected. We want to see potentially if the attacker gained access to anything or took files as well. So there's a lot of sort of data exfiltration type cases that we see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, um, obviously, as big as the devices, and I'm talking about storage, right? Is
Mhm.
has it become more difficult, or have you had to fine tune really your technique?
Yeah, I definitely think we're definitely growing more towards a triage image type scenario. I mean, it's definitely not feasible, especially if people are remote, to try to collect a full hard drive, especially over the network. Um, and I think we're now rolling out 1 terabyte SSDs or whatever in laptops. So I think we're definitely trying to pivot more towards that triage sort of image, especially for Windows. Pulling what we need specifically from an artifacts standpoint, at least to kick off the analysis and see where that kind of pivots to.
Mm-hmm. And are you looking? I guess when we talk about artifacts, I mean the granular side of that. Are we looking at full files? Are you looking for files, doc, XS, images, whatever, or are you talking about, or are you utilizing log files or some sort of INI? I mean, what would you say as on the triage side that you guys focus on? Obviously, it depends upon the investigation, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what are some
Go ahead.
99% or 90% of the time that you're grabbing?
Yeah, I mean the best phrase for forensics is it depends. um, you know, a lot of times if we're looking at exfiltration cases, we're pulling USB history, registry files, jump lists, link files, recent files, those types of things. But then we're also pivoting to see what people have on their computer, whether it's emails or web history, especially if they're potentially trying to take documents. So any web mails, sort of OneDrive or Google Drive clients, those types of things are really the key things we look at for that type of analysis.
Hmm. And so also is are the majority of your investigations do well, what would you say the percentage of your investigations that you have involve um, a mobile device? So it could be a mobile device, computer. I mean, how many of the investigations will deal with that?
Um, Probably about 50%. We definitely see we've definitely seen an uptick, I would say, in mobile device things. Um, a lot of iPhones. We're starting to see a lot more. So we're expanding globally too, and so we're seeing a lot more Android devices in different countries. So a lot of Latin America, South America, we see a lot more Android devices. So that's a little bit different, especially if we're trying to do things remotely. It's become still difficult. Like I said before,
Right.
mobile remotely has been sort of the Achilles heel at this
Right.
point.
Right. Right. And so as I mean, what's the solution, right? What's the solution now? I mean, are people shipping these devices? Or are you having someone locally, handle those devices? What What do you see as the solution?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to figure out. A lot of times we'll try to either get the device shipped in if possible, or we work with a lot of the local IT or local compliance people to at least get it onto, at least get it connected to a remote machine that we can access in some form or fashion.
Hmm. Hmm.
But even so, it's still very difficult.
Right. Right. What's the and going on to that, have you ever ran into the issue where I mean, you're doing just a standard, say, an HR investigation, whatever it may be. But at the onset of that, it wasn't necessarily criminal. Have you ever got to the point of you're like, man, okay, we need to bring in law enforcement?
Yeah, we've had some cases where I can't speak into details, but we've definitely worked with some of our local law enforcement to some of our offices, as well as three-letter government agencies as needed. So we have a good working relationship with our local office, um, and we've definitely brought them into cases as needed.
Yeah, on those cases as well. I mean, what is it kind of a give and take on that? I mean, are assisting, or are you guys handed over? What's the I guess what's the protocol?
It's definitely usually it's usually like a sort of like a transition. So, we have the evidence. We can either tell them where to look for the evidence, and, obviously give them clues to where to look for specific things if, they they word their, warrants and things properly. Um,
Do
so
you
we
actually help with
definitely
their warrants?
I mean, I don't write them, but um, you know, it's been a while since we've had a situation like that, but we want to help them out as much as possible because at the end of the day, it was one of our employees that was potentially doing criminal activities. So,
Right.
you know, we want to at least take care of them from our company side of things, and then they can have at them from whatever other sides.
Right, right. And so if you're looking at that, obviously there's different types of levels, right? By levels I mean of aptitude or of knowledge. In between, if we would take a private sector to law enforcement, do you see there's a disparity in the training levels?
I mean, just from my experiences, it seems like, funding is a big issue, I think, across the board. And I think, getting people the proper training is key. Yeah, I can't speak from experience from a law enforcement perspective, but I know, budgets are always tight everywhere you go. I mean, I know we are restricted with some of the training things that we can do from a corporate side as well. So it makes things sometimes difficult. And, I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of created my Start Me page is to get some more free resources out to people that may need it, whether they're just coming into the industry or they're experienced veterans.
Yeah. So that's what I want to talk about next is really kind of on the training side of it I mean, what are some recommendations that you might have? I mean, for people I always talk about people just starting out on it, but actually people that want to continue their education, what are some recommendations, either, paid or free or, just shout out to people and give them maybe a place to start or continue their education.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I was able to do is participate in the SANS work study program 2 times. I know SANS courses are getting expensive, and it's hard to get the money to pay for those courses. But the work study program allows you to basically work as a moderator for the class that you take. So you work really closely with the instructors and get to know them on a one-on-one basis, which is cool for a networking perspective. But then the other benefits are you get the course for a very reduced price compared to full price, and then you get all the other benefits with the training materials, the online materials, and then also taking the course for that week. I think if that's an option, I think people should take advantage of that because I really think those courses are fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, you know, there's a lot of other free resources out there. A lot of different YouTube channels. I know Joshua James goes by dfir Science. He puts out a lot of videos on different subjects and things. Um, Ali Hadi from Champlain also has a great Linux course, and he also runs a website called Cyber5W, and they put that out I think last year, and they have some free and reduced priced training courses that you can take on there as well, which I think is fantastic. I think the most expensive course is like $50, so it's a pretty reasonable price, I would say.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I think that that's extremely important. So on if we talk about go back to the sands, that's interesting. Is so to pivot on that, do you think that as going and being able to either mentor or being able to help and assist with the training or the curriculum, is do you think you learn more? I mean, personally, learn more from doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a certain perspective you do. The work study program, you're not really making coursework, but you're just helping the instructor from sort of like a back end for the week. But yeah, I think working with different people, I think getting more hands-on exercises and things, you're gonna learn quicker than just watching videos. So I think some of the keys is to get that hands-on experience. Go out and play capture the flag competitions like I do. I mean, I can't even say how much information I've learned just from playing those type of competitions.
Yeah, I think I'm 100% behind that as well. Is on kind of a practical side of it. I'm not necessarily one that's going to go and read a book rather than if I can read a book and I can go and do practical exercises. I think that's the way that I learn. Obviously, there's different ways that people do learn, but I think as on if we want to talk about a forensic side of it, I think it's extremely important. It's like writing code, right? You're going to read a Python book from cover to cover and then say perfect, I'm going to sit down without actually doing the
Yeah.
exercises that you might have to try things out. I think that's really important for people to understand, especially if you're trying to get into this, is that you can't just go and read a book and say, boom. I mean, that'd be cool. It's like the Matrix. I just plug myself in and man, I know kung fu and I can go fly a helicopter or I can do awesome shit. But so I think that that's probably the best advice, is to if you're going to do that, then you need to make sure that you do practical exercises and understand one what the outcome should be. Now, how you
Hmm.
got to that might be completely different depending upon the person, right? They might be utilizing something different to get to that. But I think that's really important to be able to go through on that. So
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I enjoy playing the CTF competitions is because I end up writing up, question and answer blog posts. And so it's kind of cool to see that, when other people put up their blog posts to see and compare, how they got to that answer. Because there's usually multiple ways to get to a single answer. And it's pretty cool to kind of, put your mind in someone else's head to see what the steps they're taking to get to the end result.
Yeah. No, no. Again, that's the first thing you learn, right? When you start getting into this is that there's really it's not A, B, C, D, E, and F, right? I mean, there's so many different variables that you might take, and a word you use several times is pivot, which is a very good word, especially in the work that we do, right? Is that you might run into something and you're like, okay, I was looking at this, but now I found this. This is obviously taking me in a different direction. And I think that having kind of tunnel vision within a forensic capacity is a bad thing, right? Because you might be just dialed in. This is exactly what happened exactly. And honestly, you can make what you believe happen, right? The data might lead you to this outcome, and that obviously that's not the right thing to do. But keeping an open mind and being able to pivot when you have to pivot and not being focused on it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things I'm trying to get better at too, is to get someone else's opinion on looking at evidence sometimes. We just hired a few new analysts, so I've been training hand in hand with one of them for the past week or two, and I keep asking questions. Where would you look for things, or what would you do in this situation, just to see where their mind goes with it, and you know, if we're on the same track, or if they're looking at it from a completely different perspective than I am. That's really cool to see.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Is that you're like someone's brand new and they come into this and you're like you've been working on it for a while and you're like this is cool. Yeah, this is great. Hey, I just have a couple questions and they say something and like in the first 5 minutes you're like, Jesus, why didn't I think of that? That was like exactly okay. Let me go. And then you're like, hey, that's great. And then you go back and look at it when they're not around. You're like, hey, let me look at that because that was really cool. I think that that's important for people to understand is is that it's not black and white, right? It's definitely the data's never going to lie. But if you have kind of an open mind and being able to take in, really, I think that what people are helping and assisting to, even if they're subordinates, even if those people are brand new, the ideas that people have should never be dismissed. And I think that that's very important. And honestly, in the I don't know what we should call it, but the COVID times is because we had so many people really kind of collaborating, communicating. Everyone was kind of doing this online, and I think that it brought a different kind of level to people simply because people are like, oh man, I never thought of that. Let me go and do this. And then they kind of like, wow, I'm going to put that little arrow in my quiver because I might have to use that sometime.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a big proponent of collaboration and working with other people. Um, I think that only is going to make me stronger, but the other people around me stronger as well. It's like the quote is, I stand on the shoulders of giants. It's like eh, everyone can build each other up to great levels if you work and collaborate together.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, it really, really is. And I have seen that more so in just the last couple of years, shit, almost 3 years, right? That we've been going into this is that it really it it has opened up, and I think that prior to that there was really a lot of closed off, and it was kind of a competitive nature in that people were, yeah, I'm not going to say that, no, no, won't do that because of this is mine. And I think that's changed, it has, and I think it has changed for the better. And I think that the industry, not necessarily the industry, but I think that the outcome of the people that are doing the investigations will be better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so that's I guess that's a plus in this. That another plus is that people want to make faster computers. They want to make better operating systems. They want to make phones with more storage. They want to make sure that an app can do everything. And so I think that there's a lot of job security involved in doing mobile devices, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we said before, everything is like ever changing. I mean, day-to-day applications change and get updated, and it definitely keeps us on our toes for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, without a doubt. The cool part about it, your image right now is that you are have just become like Yoda when he came back to talk to. when,
I'm like
you're
a
like a hologram.
hologram.
You're a hologram right now, and I'm like, that is cool. I mean, that is. I'm like, wow, this might be fantastic to be able to the show. But I like it. That's good. It's just kind of like it's that moment. You just come on that. So what I want to do before we go though is obviously, well, there's one thing I need to have. You've never told me the story, and I don't think I asked the last time. Is with Tony Stark, right? With Iron Man. I want to hear the story because I mean, obviously, you've named a company, you've done. There's some things on it. So give me just a little, the 5 second, 5 minute, whatever you want to take on it. I think people want to know.
Yeah, I mean, it,
It's like
I think
breaking
I've always
news.
been I think I've always been just like fascinated with comics and the character in general. I mean, obviously, when the movies came out, 14 years ago or whatever it was that now, I think he kind of went big time. But growing up, I always played the video games, and I would always choose Iron Man because I think, his suit of armor was really cool, and he was rich, and he was a technologist, and just really smart.
Right.
So there's a lot of characteristics that I always thought I could play up to, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I was trying to find a name for my blog, a few years ago, I was like, what am I going to call it? Like something simple, but nothing like crazy. And I just went with it. So that's kind of how
It's
the Stark
fantastic. No, I love
Forensics
it. I love it.
brand was born, I
It
guess.
is, and it is. I mean, the blossoming brand. I mean, got into the clothing side of it. I love it. And in the winter, just make sure hoodies. People love hoodies, so we got to get that going.
Yeah, I think there's some hoodies up on the
Oh,
shop.
yes.
I mean, so all those designs are you can get them in multiple types of clothing, I guess.
Right.
The site's kind of not really intuitive to tell you that there's different types, but on the side there's options for like baseball tees and hoodies and baby onesies and all sorts of other
Fantastic.
random things.
I love it. That's great. So give people. I mean, where can they go to obviously your blog? How can they go to your blog? They could probably link from the shop from there. Give them a little bit of a little info.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been pushing this more and more, but my Start Me page, so it's startme.stark4n6.com. It's just like the short link to my Start Me page that has uh, all my contact information on there. It has a link to my shop. It has a link to my blog, to my Twitter, to my LinkedIn, as well as a bunch of other links for everything and anything. So a lot of links to software and tools for forensics that they're all, I think, free to use pretty much. I say free, quote unquote, because you know you got to sometimes do a login or something to actually download the software. But there's a bunch of tools out there. There's cheat sheets. There's links to blog roles that I've kind of accumulated over the past 5, 6 years. There's a YouTube feed of a bunch of different, YouTube channels that I've found and followed, as well as podcasts and um, a bunch of other links. I mean, there's anything and everything to get you started on your kind of forensics journey, I should say.
I love it. I love it. And make sure. So give a plug for some nomination for the Forecast Awards, right?
Yeah, so the nominations are coming up soon. I think they end in a week and a half or so. So, I mean, I would love to have people nominate me for Resource of the Year for the Start Me page. And if you want to, nominate my blog, great. If you want to nominate me for something, feel free, but
Whatever.
you know,
Yeah. I wish there was a beer
whatever.
drinker. I wish there was a beer drinker award because I'd go up against you. I think it just might be might be close. Well, fantastic.
So, yeah, so with the nominations, you know, you can submit as many entries. Well, I should say you can only submit one entry, but you can list as many sites, blogs, whatever, um, per your submission. So it's, you know, it doesn't have to be just mine. It can be, you know, the dfir Discord or Fillmore's This Week in Forensics for resources. You know, nominate them all
Right.
and see what happens. And then I think once the voting comes up in like 2 or 3 weeks, then it's really crunch time.
Yeah.
You can only pick and choose one, but
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
I'm big on, you know, the community in general, and I think I've gotten so much out of the community that I want to give back to the community too, and so I'm big on that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the important. I mean, that's the important thing. It is. It really is, and that's what I was talking about before. Is just it's really kind of taken off. That people are just kind of like, okay, you know what? I'm out here to one assist and try to try to make things not necessarily easier for people, but show them what you went through and bring them up in a way that you're like, hey, I'm glad you work for me, instead of going, man, I wish you just didn't get out of school and you're coming here, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm totally all for trying to give people opportunities because I know, you know, what it takes to even try to break into the industry and get a position. So I want to give that back to people and give them the chance and opportunity to flourish.
Awesome. Awesome. You're a good human. You're a good human.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, have a great weekend. Okay. I appreciate you being on the show again. And, of course, we'll continue to do this. You'll just be the mainstay. We'll just do this all the time because we'll just drink beer, right?
Hey, I'm all for having a beer
Awesome. Thank you.
and talking forensics.
Exactly. All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Again, Kevin Pagano, I mean, again, like I said, great human. So giving back to the community, I think, is probably the most important thing that people have been built up, helped out through the time, and then they just kind of pay it forward. Again, that's what we need to continue to do, and especially, we're all winding up going back to shows and everything else like that. And obviously, people work for different companies. People work for companies that compete with each other. But honestly, I think that the best thing that we can do is just be happy to see one another, spread a little bit of fun and love, and of course, have a beer. I appreciate everyone's time. Thanks, and see you next week.